ever feel stuck? Well, I'm going to share with you why we sometimes feel stuck and also how we can get unstuck. Here on Inspiring Change for a Better You. Okay, as I was saying, sometimes you get that feeling where you get up in the morning, you get ready, you go to work, you go home, you're tired, and you go to bed. To get up the next morning, to get ready, to go to work, to get tired, and home, bed. And it just keeps rolling that way. Get up, home, work, bed. Get up, work, home, bed. Get up, work, home, bed. Get up, work, home, bed. And it takes a whole week of that. And then you get to that bit where you just feel, I just can't take this anymore. Well, let me just explain a few things about this feeling stuck. You know, the funny side is it kind of reminds me of that movie, Groundhog Day. But, you know, the serious side of it is not every time that you feel stuck, it's really such a bad thing. I mean, people get stuck in different areas. It might be their work. It might be their relationships. It might be a social life. It might be just your overall life. But one thing that I'm going to tell you is this. Not every time that you feel stuck, it's actually all that bad. You may feel bad at the time, but sometimes it's your inner person inside of you saying, look, it's time for us to grow. Look, it's time for us to start to do things. It's time for us to start to achieving our goals. You see, when you look at it that way, you realize, I've got to get some momentum in my life. I've got to start moving. So here we go. Think about this. You're sitting in a car. And when you sit in this car, you've got the windscreen ahead of you. And through this windscreen, you can see the road. But also, just above you here, you've got the rear view mirror. And you take off and you're driving. And you're looking at rear view mirror. But for some reason, you just keep looking in that rear view mirror. And you're driving, you're looking in the rear view mirror, just checking the past, or you're looking at what you've gone past already. And then somewhere along the way, what's going to happen? Yes, you're going to crash.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. That was awesome. When I heard a crash, I said, oh my days, let me make sure I got this new varifocal laces. And the lady said to me, don't wear it on the same day. Not like Dominic Cummings, who was trying to test his eyes by driving. So ladies and gentlemen, listen, I want to welcome you tonight. Awesome night. And lockdown, as you can see what the topic is. And it's just simply saying that we're on the ease of the lockdown. But during the course of the lockdown, if you remember, a lot of people are saying, I'm going to change this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to actually confront myself. The question that Coach Chris Browne and David and myself are going to talk about is, were you challenged? Have you changed? Can you see something that you've done? And do you want another lockdown to actually get it done? Either way, we're going to have a chat tonight. And without further ado, I'm going to invite my two guests, and they're coming in one, and coming in two. Coach Chris Browne and Dr. David Burton. Question first of all, can you hear me?
Yes, sir, we can hear you. Good evening.
I think we're getting good at this, because sometimes I get on and I'm saying, yes, ready to go. Can you hear me? No sounds. Listen, I'm excited, guys. How are you today? Coach?
Oh, real good today. You know, it's been a beautiful day. You know, I'm feeling unstuck right now, you know, and I'm looking forward to this, you know, with you guys. You know, it's great. Brilliant day.
Yeah. And Sir David Burton.
Yeah, it's fantastic day. You know, being able to spend time with family, played a bit of cricket It's a shame I can't upload the videos of my son's cover drive. 5, he's playing some good quality cricket and watching the West Indies, who look to be doing pretty well as well. So yeah, good day in the office.
Yeah. Well, I would say for myself, I actually took a drive down into New Cross, Peckham, because I wanted this curtain thing, which was bothering me for a long time, and get this thing sorted up. But everybody's just stopped. Yeah, they're stuck, right, Chris? They're all stuck for a while. But today I was unstuck, and I said, I'm going to get it. And I went down there and I found this perfect shop in Peckham where you can get all your curtain wares and all those sort of things. Actually, I should have said to them I could promote them. No, I'm not going to promote them. I don't even remember their name, actually. But there's a good shop in Peckham where you can get your curtains and all those sort of things. So yeah, so that's fantastic. But tonight, guys, without further ado, we had as in my opening, the lockdown period. We had our 20-day challenge discussion. But now's the time. I'm going to ask Chris to set the tone, as now's the time now to see, with the easing of the lockdown, what was it a challenge? What have you learned and what have you accomplished? Chris, Sir Coach, Chris Browne.
Okay. In this time of challenge, I would say for myself, I learned more about resilience and thinking things through. And I wouldn't say I'm the only one on that. Many people that I've actually spoken to and those that I've coached along the way in this period, I found that it was the same thing. Those who made it through was about resilience, because we are like, let's put it this way. I mentioned this before, you've got the dinosaurs, right? Yeah. And the Ice Age. And those who couldn't adapt, they went with it, right? But those who could adapt came through. So in this time of this being locked down, locked in and everything, you found ways to do things like how we guys got together with the 21 days, I mean, to be honest, that's been a great one. It's been a great focus in that sense. So for me, I think I learned more about resilience and focusing and going through. That was the main thing.
And David, for you during this course of this time.
Yeah, I think during this course of lockdown, you could probably break the two things down in terms of the lockdown and obviously the challenges. In terms of the lockdown, I think I felt there's a lot more of a family focus. I've been able to spend much more time with family, been able to float ideas with them, learn a bit more about their experiences through the course of the day, and those kind of challenges that come with that. My role at work built up over the course of the lockdown, and so I've been back to sort of a normal kind of working life for the past sort of 6 to 8 weeks now, really. But during the early part of lockdown, I think that was really where I was able to spend a lot more time with family. And in regards to challenges, obviously they set focus, it sets you a gear of focus and something for you to sort of lead with. And, that gets your mind thinking in different ways. And challenges are always going to allow you to sort of embark on new journeys and inspire you to move in different ways. So those are the two things that I've really grasped from the lockdown experience.
Yeah, and for myself, since I'm on the road at the same time, I never experienced, what should I say, the lockdown of not working, because it was consistent and continuous right through. But during the course of that time, I said to myself, I wanted to actually see what new things I can learn. And of course, I have no choice. Of course, got a family, 24/7, beautiful. Learning to understand, learning to have the noise around you at the same time. Because we're normally working quiet. And but what I learned, and when we did that 21-day challenge, I actually enjoyed that time, and I enjoyed going out each morning to walk. And then during the course of that time, as you guys have seen, I've done all this different walking and talking and doing inspirational messages and put some music behind it, which was really good. And I look forward to it so much. As Chris was actually saying, if you do something for 21 days, it becomes a habit. And I can say to you, it's the first time I've done it, it becomes a habit. Now, not saying that things in your life is not a habit based on things you've been doing all the while, because we get up and go to work without a doubt, so that's a habit as well. But one of the interesting things also is that it also sort of gave me a level of confidence and more assurance in myself and who I am. And that was a reckoning for me as well. So that was fantastic.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
So Chris, with this time now, and David, with people are now going through this point now whereby the easing of lockdown, you're going to see less videos out because people are now back to work. You're going to have persons now saying, did I accomplish what I wanted to accomplish? what is some of the as a coach as well? What are some of the feedback and the thinking going on in people's mind now, their mindset?
Well, taking it from that way, we talked about 21 days. Yeah, break a habit, make a habit. Now, the thing about it, in this time, there was a lot of new starts. There was reading new information, making videos, doing creative stuff, learning how to use Zoom and be live and all these things.
Yes.
And then it comes to that point, we've got the 21 habits, 21 days, which can actually work for you or against you.
Yes.
For you is that you have grown. You have learned things you've never, ever stopped to learn before. You have observed things the way you've never looked at them before. Those are the positives. Here goes a little spin. Is that sometimes after this period, we got used to actually staying at home. So it's going to be a bit of a fight to actually get back out there. I've found a lot of people saying, well, actually, you know what? I've enjoyed my time off. I enjoy working at home. So companies are having a kind of negative fight in how to actually bring people back to work. You know, and then they've got to do the thing of working out how they're going to do with all the 1 meter, 2 meter spacing, or is it better for people to stay at home and work remotely? You see, there's a lot of things in this at the same time.
I completely agree, Chris. I think that from a mindset point of view, people's way and want to desire to be in a workplace, crammed into a workplace or otherwise, and that workspace has completely changed. The realization that much of the tasks that can be accomplished at home can be done at home with the right IT support, with the right infrastructure, and so on and so forth. And so people's desire to go back out and get to a workplace, you know, saving on money and transportation, that's going to obviously be good for the economy, for the environment as well. Those sort of things have really come into fruition in regards to the mentality and the way that people work. Now, quite obviously, there are roles that people cannot do from home. But I was in a meeting last night, for example, and the modality and thought was actually, do we need to have meetings now whereby we have to meet face to face? We've got other ways of doing that now through virtual medium. So I think that's that shift and realization that we have different ways of communicating is definitely come to fruition because of the circumstances around the lockdown.
Now that's very crucial, like what you said there. It's a new way of working, new way of doing things, a new level of what we call normalcy. And I want to put this out also to persons and those on replay or whatever listening. The question is, what have you learned about yourself during the course of this time? What was a challenge like? Do you want another lockdown? You know, in the sense that, oh my days, I did not get what I want. David, do you want another lockdown? I mean, not you personally, but do you think persons might be saying to themselves, and also to Chris eventually, do people are saying, hang on a second, I need that space to really do some more stuff, you know, I'm not ready yet. And if they don't achieve that, what do we say to them? And Chris, you come on to that there, David,
Sure. I mean, I think that people would. I've had conversation with friends who said, "Oh, they're missing the lockdown, the times of the lockdown." I don't think they're missing, obviously, the broader concept of people going through the coronavirus and otherwise. But the fact is, through that time of lockdown, you have a time of self-reflection. You have a time for sharing with your space with your loved ones in confined circles, but also getting out into the community if you're able to go for walks or etc. with them. So spending that time, quality time, realizing what actually matters in life. Okay, so you know we have a real social kind of way of doing things. We go, we work, we come home, but you know that kind of thought and realization actually that you can take, whilst it's difficult, you can take some of that work home and share that time with your family and loved ones. I think that's the key thing with all of this. And so to answer your question, I think that people would like to realize a lockdown again. My challenge would be to people to realize ways of trying to get employers on board, if you're able to work from home, to have that kind of lockdown in a sense, so you can then share your time with your loved ones, be creative in your mindset, do the things that you may well struggle to do on that commute to work and back home, because commutes to work can range from anything from a walk of 5 minutes to 2 hours, and that's a big chunk of your time and day that's absorbed by commuting and not being able to possibly realize that channel that creative kind of mindset and do the things that you may all want to do. So that's my challenge to people would be, look, find ways that you can probably bring your work home, that you can get your employers on board, and then you'll be able to fit a bit more of that lockdown tendencies into your natural, normal day pursuit of life,
Yeah,
pursuits in life even.
yeah, yeah. And Chris.
I much agree with that in that sense. And the one area which I'll pick out actually from there is the area of values, because after this 21 days, you go back, but your values have changed, which is more important than either the value of the money and everything else that's going on, Obviously, we need to work, we need to pay bills, we need to make things happen. But some people have found new ways of doing things or new ways of generating income whilst on this. But in saying that, why would you want to do that in that sense? Because you're more aware about the value of your loved ones. You're more aware about the time that you spend in work than you are with those around you. It's a sort of win-win situation if, just like David said, if you can actually convince your employers to that point of getting you to be able to be with your family, but yet still do the work, you will generate more and you'll be more productive in that sense. Well, most would. Anyway, I know some people might think, oh, well, I can't, I'm distracted and all that, which is so. But at the end of the day, overall, values are what's really coming into play through all this as well. Because there were times, I'm sure there are people who got on people's nerves, but in this time, in this period, they really missed them. They missed them. They missed their family. They missed those ones that they clashed with because they're, locked away from everything. So, yeah, values is what I'd say be the main thing that came out this.
And let's look at this one now. This is the self, the confrontation with self. And this is something we're talking about a lot. You have issues of domestic violence because people are confrontation with themselves. People are actually, I saw the video with two white guys talking to each other next door, and they said, man, how are you coping? Man, I don't know, man. I've seen some children in my house. I don't know them. A big head boy. So what they're trying to say, they don't know their family. They don't know themselves. So what would you say then now about people finding themselves and the challenges during this period where they have no choice but to have that confrontation because the lockdown was forced upon them? That's a challenge, isn't it?
I think it is a challenge. I mean, in terms of trying to pick up on recognizing yourself, we've had a lot of time for self-reflection.
Yeah.
A lot of time for self-reflection, and I guess it's the ways and means that you go about trying to figure that one out. And I think exploring that is really individual. Okay, so we all have our ways of trying to figure out where we fit and our roles in life. And again, you're right that the lockdown kind of enforced that on you if you're in the household with people that you did, or family that you may not have been in contact with. But I think a lot of it is just trying to figure out the best way of you unlocking yourself, best way of you interacting with people, and knowing your limits in terms of how you interact with people, because there will be some times that you just don't want to interact. You want to be more self-respected or self-insular and just want to just be yourself. And there's other times where you may want to come out of your shell a little bit more and be more interactive. And quite obviously people have triggers. Okay, so people will have a trigger to say, okay, well, actually, I don't want to discuss this, or the line of inquiry is too much for me. I want to back out. That's the point where you fall back and you say, okay, well, look, I don't want to have any more discussions on this, and you find a way of coping with that particular aspect. And I think that's the key, rather than having that outward kind of emotion of having an argument, etc., which can easily happen in a confrontational way. So knowing your limits, and I think recognizing your limits is key to sort of having an effective way of communicating with others, whether that's family or friends, because of the lockdown scenario. That's my take on things.
Yeah.
I mean, the actual finding yourself as well it's a great one that you actually raised there, because when you think about it, let's put it in my line of work. All right, it's coaching, right? So that is about individuals finding about themselves, things they already know that they weren't aware of what they knew, right? It wasn't me putting something in it. It's something they actually knew, but it's just tapping into that. Now, being in isolation and not having that interruption. And when I say interruption, meaning a noise, everyday noise. As soon as we get up, there is a noise that interrupts our thoughts every day. It could be, let's say, literally, physically, noise, truck driving by, traffic, or we could be talking about just general life, the TV and everything. But when we remove this noise, who are we left with? ourselves, our own thoughts, our development, and we start looking at our weaknesses, our strengths, and then we get excited about a few things when we realize what we are capable of and our true potential, and realize because of all the busy, noisy day of every day of your life, you haven't really explored your true potential. And I found within this, in the coaching, I found many people who have actually found that and have got really excited to the point that they can't wait till lockdown's over so they can get out there and do what they've discovered, what they can do.
The practical thing. And then what about then the person now that says, I did not actually achieve much. I wish the lockdown could go further. What do we say to them now that to say, hang on a second, it's not a done deal just because you did not achieve it during that lockdown period? How do they continue then with that kind of that agenda? Yeah.
I mean, challenges aren't finite. Sorry, Chris. I was going to say challenges aren't finite. Challenges are infinite. So my point here is that things can be harnessed before, during, or after the lockdown, and you don't need the lockdown as a crutch in order for you to do undertake a certain task or have a certain challenge as a way of focusing your inner self. So that's the first thing I would say. And in regards to how you move forward, challenge. This is not a finite thing; it's an infinite thing. You can challenge yourself on a daily basis to put yourself out there, to push yourself, to stimulate yourself, and to have a real focus in what you wanted to achieve.
Yeah, it's a sort of DIY, isn't it? It's the DIY, do it yourself, or have someone else do it for you. Because having the lockdown is somebody else doing it for you. And much to what you're saying is the DIY, do it for yourself. Because I suppose there's some who are thinking they didn't get to achieve what they want to achieve, and now we've got to go back out. And those are the people who are probably waiting for a second time saying, look, we'll have a lockdown. This is great, right? Now, the thing about it is it's not great because there's a lot of consequences with it as well. But you have the power to have the same focus which you had within the lockdown. Yes. You can have it without that. You might say no, but you're going to get interruptions. I understand. You have the power to actually have your own kind of lockdown to focus on what you need to do.
So what I'm picking up here then is that people may also need to bring themselves into their personal lockdown stage as well. Create their own lockdown.
Yeah. They create their own lockdown, but we're not talking about a sort of isolation.
Yeah, of course,
we're talking about raising the focus level, the sort of focus that you had then, you can actually do it yourself without having that being put on you. And it is DIY, not do it for you. It is DIY focus. DIY focus.
Yeah.
I'm focusing on Chris right now. I'm mesmerized. He's just inspiring me to think of other things and projects that I would like to establish in life. And I completely agree with him. Maybe lockdown can be seen as the ignition, the fire starter for you to go on and pursue your life goals. That could be the thing that lockdown gives you, and that could be the thing that allows you to sort of embark on those tasks.
Yes, and in saying that, it's really funny because in saying that, as you just said, it's really funny because when the lockdown was coming, there was a lot of we were running around like ants, weren't we? We were running around like ants, right?
Collecting toilet roll. Collecting toilet roll.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the various toilet roll, like I said last time to Ferrari.
Sorry, Silbo, I missed that.
I said nobody has cracked that mystery yet about the toilet paper.
Gold dust. Loo roll lockdown. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, I got lost with that one when he jumped in there. Go on. Carry on. Right. The thing is, we have actually kind of cracked it in the sense that we know what our strengths are now. And we were running around before in the beginning like ants when you see them just going everywhere and everything, because we were a little bit afraid, if we're honest with ourselves. Everybody didn't know how long it's going to go on or whatnot. Now we know how it goes, and we got into routine as we did the 21 days. Now we can think even better how we're going to apply ourselves if it does come around again. But it's DIY.
Well, I like the bit that David brought up earlier, that I had to find the song when it talks about I'm the fire starter, you know what I'm saying? You know, and you know, and say, I'm the fire starter. You know what I mean?
This is hey, don't like the song. This is a beautiful song. This gets you motivated in the gym. Gets you motivated in life. R.I.P. You know, R.I.P. This guy. It's
so yeah. I like the bit about the fire starter there because I always say that everything is like an ember that bursts into a flame, and I believe that. Listen, when the lockdown was going on, I used to enjoy it, save for the fact that, of course, that person's passed away, and you know, we got the condolences to the over 40,000 people who have passed away or so.
Yeah.
And but I used to enjoy driving sometimes to pick up cake. Oh, sorry, I'm gonna say
the cake debate. Go.
Yeah, and the lady who make the cake sometimes she always make these soup as well, and just say, listen, I'm just making soup also for people as well. You know what I mean? I used to enjoy that, you know. And then when the lockdown was eased, and then I went to pick up a cake recently, I said to her, listen, they mashed up our dolly house, man. Traffic was like 20-30 minutes when it was normally 10 minutes, 5 minutes, you know. But the point about it is that there have been some sort of quietness at the course of that time, some level of quietness, which and for introspection and for people to actually think through their lives. And I find it as well, and I say this, even though I didn't get to understand a lot about Premiere Pro in my editing skills, you know, but I've learned other things, and I said I got to keep making sure that I dig into Premiere Pro so I can do some editing on the computer as well for myself and waiting for persons. So I'm not seeing it as a done deal. And I'm not saying I want the lockdown, but I think in a way I have reached to a point where I choose to adapt to circumstances and things which are happening.
Right.
You know? And Chris, do you think as well that the best thing is to choose to adopt, because this has made us come out of our shell. This was uncharted waters, like Brexit, uncharted opportunities.
You know something, let's think about it this way as well, because I remember something I was tweeting one time, at Chris Browne 23, by the way, right? Yeah. I was tweeting one time, and what happened was this thought came over because somebody else said something to me, and it was the case of, what did you learn in this time, right? And the case was, most people say, well, what did you not do that you should have done? And you know what? I think for a majority of all of us, they would have said, well, I've learned Zoom. I've learned Zoom. I've learned Zoom. Oh, what would you say you regret around the time? Not investing in Zoom. Yeah. You know, because that would have been it. You know, you'd be sitting pretty at the end of the day. So there's a lot of things that we could have done and should have done, but it's not about focusing on what you should have done. It's about doing something about it now. You know, it doesn't say that there's somebody say, oh, you're out of lockdown now, so that's it. Go home, go to work. No. We have the power, and we can carry on doing what we need to do, bit by bit.
Well, one of the things that I want to do as well is that while we're talking about this from the UK perspective, I'm also wanting to bring in a US perspective as well. You know, and I'm going to bring in a colleague of mine who is in the States. His name is O'Neill Cross. O'Neill is a Jamaican-American technologist focusing on leveraging emerging technologies such as artificial intelligence. He's going to come on. But before I go there, I need for persons who are listening to know that Chris Browne, Coach Chris Browne is an E. Never forget that. Yes.
You'll never let me off that E.
Yeah. Lives with a passion, to help others overcome their blocks in life, especially in their careers and social life. His passion comes from his own experience of challenges that he had to overcome, a realization that this is transferable to many other challenges that we all have to deal with. And I now call Coach Chris Browne Coach. And he doesn't know that now he's my coach. But you know, since we did a 21-day challenge with him and David, my coach. And one of his favorite words is, your competition is not with others. Your competition is with you to become better today than you were yesterday and just fantastic tomorrow. Coach Chris Browne. with an E. Yeah. And David Burton, I can't even say these names. MBHB, MB, blah, blah. You know what I mean? These are some of the technicalities behind a doctor's name. He's Dr. Burton, but he's Mr. Burton. That is when you have the higher level. So if you're a Mr., you're at a high level of doctorship. So therefore, I am at a high level. I'm Mr. Fidel. Chris is Coach Chris Browne. So therefore, he's up a higher level. He coaches us. David is a GMC registered consultant ophthalmic surgeon working in the NHS. He has worked in several regions in the UK, inclusive of Yorkshire, the Northwest, Midlands, London. Keen interest, postgraduate, co-host of The Coach with his wife. Man, we are missing out something. You wait until you guys get his wife, Carla. She's also a doctor, specialist in epidemiologist. All right. And for me, I'm just SYLBOURNE, straight from Ochi. Straight out of God. Straight. And in 1 minute, I'm gonna bring in. He's laughing. How are you? How are you, Anil?
I am doing excellent, SYLBOURNE. How are you doing?
I'm good. And ladies and gentlemen, Anil, you've been following, and I said, let me just go straight across the Atlantic and go into Virginia in the States, my Jamaican American mate. Did you guys have lockdown there? Because Trump keeps saying everything. You guys should we stay? Should we fast forward? It's all right. Fantastic. Over there, Anil.
Yeah, we certainly had the lockdown. I would say I've been March 12th, I think, is when I started working from home, and I've been since. The good thing is that we have the infrastructure from a company perspective to switch to teleworking, so that was great. But then the piece that you miss is sort of seeing your friends and your colleagues in person.
Yes.
And I think I was listening as I was in the green room. By the way, O'Neill is straight from Sangonet, the census man is from Ochi. Straight from Love that. So it's more of getting used to Zoom, and you get Zoom exhaustion. That's the thing that for me is like you start at 7:30 our time, and sometimes you get 8:30. You're still on Zoom back to back to back, so it becomes exhausting. So you have to figure out how to make sure the family is taken care of, right? Because that's more important, right? Things are going on. The great thing is that Virginia wasn't as bad as New York and other places. And, I live outside of DC in the suburbs. So it's easy. I lived across from a park. So I'm able to go walk the park and continue to do my runs and stuff like that. And you practice social distance. So that was great. But I think the other piece that I look at is we're in this sort of lockdown, and I think SYLBOURNE, you and I have sort of talked about it. I zoomed out, and my perspective on it. So if I'm talking to my 80-year-old self, because this period will be written about, what would history say you have done, right? So when you look at it from COVID, let's look at that. You're locked down, and some of my friends were like, I can't stand this lockdown. It's driving me crazy. And I remind them, Nelson Mandela was in solitary confinement for 27 years, no family, right? The only thing he had was books. And he came out a stronger, much more resilient person. So I asked myself, what am I going to do during this period? How do I come out of this a better human being, for one, a better friend, a better colleague? And you start to zoom out and say, you know what, I haven't talked to this mate and a friend in 10 years. Let me reach out, right? And the other piece is, what skill set do I want to develop? For example, SYLBOURNE and I talk about leadership. I'm always fascinated about leadership. So how do I get better at that? How do I become a better leader? And throughout this period, I've taken an improv class, which is really fun. If you haven't ever taken an improv sort of comedic class, I took one. It was really fun. So this entire period is O'Neill figuring out how to be a better person coming out of this. My grandmother, God bless her soul, always tell me, do not focus on the things you cannot control. Right? COVID is here, right? It's the world we're living in. I can't worry too much about it. I could figure out how to make myself and my family safe and secure. But how do I then use this period to not only impact other people's life in a virtual world, but also how do I make myself better? And that's sort of the focus for me. And you and I have chatted about it.
Okay, good start there. And thanks for that, O'Neill. I want to go to David now, who can give us a sort of breakdown with COVID. And I think this comes in very powerful because of what O'Neill said, that COVID is here. Yeah, Chris, COVID is here for a while. We have had the lockdown. David, give us a sort of idea. What is the thinking medically, you guys briefing regarding COVID? Is it going to be here for a while? Is there a possibility of another lockdown? Where are we now? Not that you can see the future.
Yeah. I'm gonna just pick up my crystal ball. It's just over this way, so I'll pick that up. It's a bit invisible, so you guys can't see it. But in all seriousness, I think I just wanted to point to one thing that O'Neill just said in terms of finding a new focus, finding something else to sort of embark on in life. And I think in terms of the
impact. So, Coach, you're gonna pick up on that until David comes back, based on the impact. Yeah, go on.
Well, from what you said just now, I mean, one thing I'll say, God bless your grandmother, because the thing about it is, this is an exercise they actually use when coaching. And one of the ones that I only just mentioned is, as the grandmother said, the things focusing on the things that you can influence, not the things you cannot influence. And the things you cannot influence are the things which can turn out to be very frustrating mentally. So let's think about COVID. In the beginning, like I said, people were frustrated because they didn't know when they're going to come out, what's going to happen, and all these things. Once people actually knew what power they had, they were in a different place where they can actually say, look, these are the things that I can influence, so now I'm going to do something about it. In doing that, what I do with group is I'll just do it, don't forget. So you've got a piece of paper, you've got a circle, and you've got another circle on the outside. The circle on the inside is the things that you cannot influence. The circle on the outside are the things that you can influence. So you ask the person, so let's just example, if I said, can you influence the weather? Where would you put that? So they'd put it in a place where you can't influence, which is in the center there. And then you go through the other areas as well. So let's talk about mentality, taking it into COVID. If you're going to focus on something that you cannot influence, you are going to burn up and get very frustrated mentally. And at a time like this, we got to take care of our mental health. What might frustrate one person might take another person to another place. What might not frustrate someone might take them to a very good place at the same time. So you've got to be aware, just like I always said, as Grandma said, and I totally agree with that in this exercise, is be aware of what you can influence and be aware of what you can't influence.
Okay, thanks for that, Chris. And I'm going to go back to David to pick up from there. I just wanted to get a break a while ago. That's why I just...
No, I figured that my crystal ball didn't tell me I was going to get kicked out. So now I know I'm back in the room. Hopefully my crystal ball is telling me I'm staying here. But in all seriousness, what I was going to pick up on was the leadership aspect that O'Neill touched on there. And I think it's a fantastic testament that you've got the time to sort of have the thoughts to things that you want to explore laterally, because of the silver lining that's given to us because of COVID. And I think there are many silver linings that we can actually deem from this. One of the thoughts that I've had for a long while is that the transition through life. We're born, we go to school, we educate ourselves, we then start working, we think about kids laterally. If you want to have kids, that is, but you can't be with your kid because you're working, and then you grow a little bit older and you're thinking about retirement after you've got them through to university or through their work. And then once you've retired, you're hoping that they have a kid so you can share and have some experiences with them. And then so you're waiting for that. I'm anticipating that as a consequence. You're waiting for that to occur. But then you're old and you may not be able to do the things that you were when you were a little bit younger, kick some football and run up and down and all that jazz. And so what COVID has given us in that regard is that time to sit down and reflect with our families. And I think we've got to, after this, find new ways of harnessing the ability to put family first. And family should always be first, but I think we've now had the time to reflect on that aspect. So that's something that's brought out for me. Now back to COVID. Again, the issues regarding COVID, it's really difficult to sort of put a pin on what will happen. We've seen across the board there are countries that have dealt very well and have very low numbers of either infected rates or unfortunate passing of life, where there are some countries still going through the mill, unfortunately, and actually having what you could deem to be a second spike, but I think is actually the primary entity in itself. So we've just got to really watch this space. We've really got to have a degree of common sense and respecting the local laws in place. With respect to the UK, we're finding that the case numbers of people who are unfortunately passing away is obviously on the decline at present. And so that only bodes well for future kind of opening up of the economy, opening up of people, seeing friends, family, etc. And, you know, just respecting the rules at the time. My personal belief is that you will have a very small number of local lockdowns still occurring regionally, if and when that time desires, and that I'm hopeful that things will just die out. I'm hopeful that you'll have a small number of cases that will just unfortunately take place, and then if and when there's a reliance, if there's a reliance on a vaccination, then we wait for that to come into fruition. Obviously, the news today coming out through the media is that we've not aligned ourselves with the EU in regards to sort of commissioning vaccinations. You can read into that what you will in that regard. There's obviously going to be a big clamber, we feel, for vaccinations once they do arise, but the vaccination is not a guarantee. That's the thing I want to sort of make clear. I think we're a few years or few months, sorry, maybe a couple of years off having a vaccination, but just watch this space.
I want to throw this question out, and also for persons watching and viewing on the replay or whatever like that. And this is a question: with the new level of normalcy that we may be having, and also this is Christian, O'Neill, all of you guys there. How do people adapt to it? What are some of the challenges that we'll have, because we're coming out of not 21 days, it's 30 days. There was 30 days of this was happening. So therefore, there was a habit. The chancellor said, with the furlough, he said, I know people are saying they wanted to extend. If I extend it to October, they're going to want to extend it to November. If I extend it to November, they're going to say it's too early. Why not next year? So the question now is, how do people adapt with this new change after they are 30 days of a habit, Chris? 21 days habit, 30 days of a habit in lockdown. The new change. Yeah.
When we talked about 21 days, we know that worked out to be 3 weeks.
Yes.
Right? This has gone on a lot longer. So this has got solidified, right, in how we are. Hence why it's hard to get the change, to get people out now. Now, for the individual dealing with that yourself, this is what you've got to look at. Because what this really boils down to is time.
Yes.
Time, right? Because now we've realized what we could do with the time. So we've got to learn to actually time manage ourselves better. What you put in is what you get out, right? So what do you put into everything now? Now you've understood more about yourself. You've understood how to handle the situation. You're understanding your family members. You've probably read more than you've ever read before and taken in more information. So what are you going to do with that now? Now, how you apply that is a case of managing your time so you can put these things into place to take you out from where you are to another level. That's what you got to do. So time management. All right, when we talk about time management, look, we could be talking about the sort of, his name's just gone from my head, right? But let's just say we've got things that are urgent, things that are not so urgent, and things we just play with every day and things we don't need to do, right? So let's think about the things that we don't really need to do, that we've been using our time up with, which is very valuable. Time does not come back. Look, I just said the word back and it's gone. Let me say it again, back. See, it's gone quickly. That's whole. Keep doing this, we'll go crazy, right? All right. So that time's gone. So let's think about the time that, let's just jump from one to the other. That's urgent. The things that are urgent, you need to work on those and put them in a place where they're not so urgent. So we need to time manage ourselves and use this time now that we've got. We've changed. We can't go back. 21 days, all right. 30 days, let's say 40 days or so. You can't go back to who you were before. You can only build on what you've gained already.
Anil, what's your take on that? The new normal say it won't be business as usual. Stepping into this new way of thinking and this new way of operation.
So I'll pick up on something Chris mentioned around time management, because I think that's important. And there's a lot of, Chris mentioned you're reading more. I certainly am reading more, exploring more. And, in your traditional, what we used to back, which is gone, what's the new normal is going to look like. You had these quiet times, which are important, because that's how you synthesize information. That's how you think through, right? What I worry about is, because we mentioned before when I got on sale around the exhaustion, we have filled the day in from a work perspective, and then we transition right to family, which is a great thing. Yeah. But then we don't have that space to think, right? So if you remember, driving to work before was my quiet time.
Yes.
Driving back from work was my quiet time.
Yes.
So now, how do you figure out, to Chris' point, that time management? Because if you start at 8 o'clock in the morning, finish at 6, you go spend some time with the family, there's a mental exhaustion, right? Yeah. So how do you then figure that out? So what I have done is figure out to say, I'm blocking time off. You know what? I'm going to go walk. And I found some of the best trail in Virginia that I didn't even know existed before. I find myself walking 12 miles before. We Jamaican, we do a push cart. That's it. We ain't walking, right? So now I'm walking much more, and I find myself just immersed in thinking, which is important, because we really have some great thinking that we need to figure out. I think David mentioned around, COVID, what the new normal is going to look like, what's the future of this is going to look like, right? And I think that's where time management is important. And that's why I'm finding it challenging, to be honest. And that's why I have to be much more intentional about blocking off my calendar to say, look, this half a day, I'm not doing anything, because I'm just mentally exhausted. And I wanted some quiet time to just self-reflect and get all the information so I could be more productive. So that's sort of how I look at it.
That's very interesting. And Chris, that I've been doing this walking challenge, and I just only like what you said. I find myself now walking further away. At the same time, not trying to get away from my family. Further away. If people don't understand how I do this walking thing now, is that I walk a bit first, and then I play different music and I listen, and you're right, it's a peaceful moment. And anybody that watches my video always say, so peaceful. So I don't even want to talk too much to upset the birds or the bees or anything like that. It is so peaceful. And guys, it is literally peaceful. I'm actually feeling that moment now. But I've learned from it that I pick up different things, and then I start to download information from God. There's a downloading process that comes. But guess what? It only happens when I walk. When I get up and I say to my wife, I'm going for a walk, that's when things start to kick in. So it's like a mental thing for it to start the process. So I don't know if I want to pick up on that, but David, if you want to pick up on that bit there.
I think just re-emphasizing what is already being said. Time management, I think, is key into having a time for mental reflection, a time for sharing space with the family, and time for obviously for work. And by whatever means you go and try and realize that, either through a calendar kind of format, or just having in mind that, okay, this task is going to take me 10-15 minutes, and after that I'm going to be doing something else, and blanking your mind away from the task that you've just done. From my personal point of work, everything has to be on the calendar, in terms of my time that I spend with patients, in terms of my time that I do administrative tasks, and so on and so forth. And I know that my time outside of work, thankfully for the job that I currently do, is my time. I don't really have to think about work outside of work. And I think if you're able to do that and shut down, then it's fantastic. But the challenges that come with using sort of this kind of medium like Zoom, etc., and carrying out work is that you can get lost in the work. The work can absorb you.
Yeah.
You can find yourself doing the work on weekends and evenings that you may well have not been doing before, because you just get lost in it. And I guess it's just having the time to put down, fold at the computer, and say no. You've got to just sit down and say, no, I'm not going to do the work in this particular fashion. I'm not going to be able to do this particular project right now at this time, because that can be distracting from the mental relaxation that O'Neill talked about, or spending time with family, etc. So that's the other challenge that comes with this, the ability to say no, to put your head in the right space, so that you can proactively go forward in a positive way.
And if I ask persons who are watching on a replay and present, and even on Instagram, which I just saw you over there, we may come over into Instagram if certain persons are able to get go ahead, come over there. But I'm sure O'Neill will be joining me, and David. Another person that cannot even spell the word Instagram because they haven't got an account yet.
You're not naming any names there, SYLBOURNE.
I'm not saying any names. Well, somebody just said to me I must go for a walk later. I don't know
Well,
the
sun's still shining, so there's always time.
I don't know what I'm saying, but anyway, if you guys see me taking these glasses on and off, it's a very focal, and it's my first day, and I'm trying to work it out. So now I'm going like this, trying to read, so bear with me if you see that's happening. But sorry, go on. What was I saying?
No, I was going to offer. There's technology now called LASIK.
And there's a friendly ophthalmologist in this group who could help you out there as well. So, not saying any names.
But also there's a key advisor to the Prime Minister who actually drives to test his eyesight. There's some crazy things. I mean, lockdown has created some crazy new ideas and new thinking at the same time. But I just want to ask persons, this is what I was going to say. How have you been with guests and persons on replay and on Instagram? How have you been with your time management at this time? Do you find yourself sitting, working hard continuously? That is if you're working from home, or do you find yourself effectively know when to shut off? I had a guest one time named Anthony Francis, and Anthony Francis said you need to dress as if you're going to work in the morning, put on your clothes and blah blah blah. And then one morning I had a Zoom call with some clients, and they said, "But where's your suit? Where's your suit?" And I said, "Well, you guys work me so hard. No, we haven't seen your suit." And then it hit me. The person actually watched that video. That client watched that video.
You must practice what you preach, is what you're saying.
And said to me, "No, you said you need to dress as you are." But anyway, on a last note, I mean, what's you guys' last word then to encourage people as we get into this lockdown, easing the lockdown stage? If I go with David first, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm going to give you a very short story here, but maybe a long story. I'd encourage people to think about other things other than COVID. I think what COVID allowed is for us to think about exceptional things like the whole unfortunate passing of George Floyd, for example. I think that's opened up a discourse in regards to people, whether white or black. And I know I said this with you earlier, SYLBOURNE, patients have felt upon themselves to ask me the question, have you encountered any racism? How have you felt with things in regards to race? And I don't think they would have entered that discussion had it not been for the unfortunate passing of George Floyd. And I think that whilst that is a terrible thing to have occurred, and I would never want this to occur, and I want obviously there to be no sort of police issues in regards to brutality against black or otherwise. I do think it's opened up a discourse, and people have been able to share and talk a bit more openly about race-related issues. And I would say that the lockdown has also helped with that in a manner or fashion, because maybe people wouldn't have been afforded the time to sort of think about those things. And so that's been again one of the silver linings with this. I think encouraging the discussion, breaking down the barriers that particularly exist within communities. I'm not saying we can eradicate relationship through education. I'd be foolhardy to think so, but I think it will help to reduce that as a particular issue. And so that's been a positive in my daily pursuit.
And if I pick up on Chris at this point, but also look at the question which Dean has put down there as well. If you can see the question.
What about business owners working at home?
Yeah.
What give them?
Yeah, if I can just say it out loud. Well, what about business owners working at home? What advice do you give them? You can answer that, and then you're closing. Yeah.
Right. Well, business owners working at home, you've got to look at it in two ways. It's kind of twofold, to be honest. One, I'll go back on the same thing I said earlier on, is time management. Now, that's easy us sitting here and saying that, but when you're actually in the position and realize that, look, if I don't put that in, then I'm not going to get anything out and my customers. But then we've got to be flexible. We're moving in a time of, let's say, well, information technology. At the end of the day, technology is what's doing it. So we've got to find how we're going to apply our businesses in different ways. For me personally, at this time, to be honest, as soon as lockdown came, and around this time, I was looking at, I usually go and meet clients. I go to businesses, I give talks and this, that, and the other. And then I got a few calls from a few companies, and then it just had a roll like that, where I realized, well, hang on, maybe I was thinking a wrong way at the same time. So here I am, I'm sitting in the house, I'm on the laptop, and there I'm with Zoom doing the same thing. So yes, you've got to think how to apply yourself and be more flexible. Sometimes the old saying of thinking outside the box, it's a reality. It's a reality. We're only limited by our own thoughts. And when somebody says, well, how are you going to do that? Or what are you going to do? What, you going to try that? Yeah. Yes, I am. And I'll be the first one to break through. That sort of thing. You've got to have that sort of thinking at the end of the day. Reaching your customers as well. This is a time where there are customers just sitting there waiting to be reached. But then on the other side, it depends what type of business, to be specific about this answer as well. Make sense?
And if you just give your final closing as well, Chris. Chris, can you hear me?
Oh yeah, I can hear you. Sorry, I thought you meant to say it.
No, I'll say if you can give your closing now. Yeah.
What I'll say this is, look, we've gone through a period. We've gone through change. Why would you want to go back? Why do people always want to say the word normal, right? It's not normal. We've changed. This is a big paradigm shift. So we've got to go with that shift and think, how are we going to build on things from there? And that's what I'll say with that. Stop looking back. Don't look to the left, don't look to the right. Just keep looking ahead. How am I going to step out and build from here onward? And you can always get in touch as well.
Yeah. And Daniel, if you can follow up on that one, and also even touch briefly on that question there, what the Maurice Samuels about what do business owners working at home?
No, I think Chris and David said it well. What I would add is, in this new virtual world, if you have relationship with clients as a business owner, those relationships are solidified.
Yes.
But also don't make it transactional. And what I mean by that, give your current customers a call and say, for example, I'm just checking on you. Don't need anything. Just saying hi, are you okay, how you're coping. That move away from transactional, and your customers remember that, right? So that's one of the things I would say. With new customers, it's harder to build that relationship because you didn't have that relationship in person before. There are tips and techniques of how you do that. And one of the things that I would say as business owners, which we tend to jump in, especially on Zoom, where we want to get into transactions. Take the time, ask that person how they're doing, get to connect with them in different ways so you build a rapport and relationships. Because I think those things are important, because coming out of this, those customers who you called and just say, hey, I'm checking on you, they'll remember that. You're not looking for a sale. All you're doing is checking in on them.
Yes.
So I think those things are important. And sort of how I would close, I appreciate when you bring me on, great panel, is think about what history would write about your role.
Yeah.
How did you improve yourself? How did you improve your family and your communities? How do you connect with others in a much more meaningful way? And as I think David said it, how do I take the time to learn about someone else? One of the things I've always said, I look at things, especially with my dad, in a pretty interesting way. I always look and say the Super Bowl. If I only see my dad once a year, or only call my dad once a year, if I look at 10 Super Bowl, my dad is 6'6". It means I will only talk or see him or my mom, 10 times in 10 years.
Yes.
So how do you take this time now? Zoom, right? Get the family in Zoom. Call your parents. Call your loved one.
Yes.
Right? Make this a meaningful connection time so we get out of this a better human being. And the last thing I'll say, and I've said this before, so I'm a big follower of Stoicism. And Marcus Aurelius said, the number one vocation is to be a good human being.
Yes.
And if we practice that, we're going to get out of this much more stronger and resilient than we got into it.
Yeah, here.
Okay, here. So thank you for that. And thank you guys for this interesting discussion. Thank you for the guests as well who came on today. And of course, you can find Chris Browne. I'm going to put Chris Browne details there where you can locate him and get some serious punch. I'll also close off with Are You Feeling Stuck? At the same time, where you can get a sort of perspective as well. Guys, I want to thank you so much for coming on. And this is just the start. Well, not the start. We have started already. We've started from lockdown, isn't it? This is a new paradigm shift. This is
the new normal.
I mean,
we're not going back, so.
Yeah.
People are saying, are you going back into the studios for argument's sake? And I have to put that on ice now because I'm realizing that I've got a more freedom, a more free space to reach out. Anil over there right now in Virginia. Chris, you are there in that side of the world. David is hiding somewhere. She's trying to find where is he. She was cooking at this time, and it's awesome. And I've actually started to really approach it because I was in the process of starting to think about guests going into studio, and then it just hit me. Hang on a second. This is the flow. Yeah. Even though I say don't go with the flow, as you guys know, what I mean? Oh, Silver is don't go with the flow, So I don't know if you want to pick up on anything on that last bit there, Chris.
To be honest, you said something.
Final word, guys. Sorry, Yeah.
Right.
Final word.
It's great being on here, Right. You said something earlier on there. When you go for your walks, that's when you download it. And you said in between, that's when God downloads that. Let me say something. For all of us, at the end of the day, it's about having that still moment so that God can download on all of us and realize what we should be doing, what we're meant to be doing, what our purpose is, and how we can enrich others as well. It's all about the giving at the end of the day. We've all learned a lot through this period, and unfortunately as well, just as Dave just said about, with everything that happened as well, the dialogue we can have now. This is brilliant. And we can all learn something from each other. No matter who we are, we can always learn something from each other.
Okay. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, those on the replay and those online, I want to thank you so much for coming on. And of course, answer those questions as well. How do you cope with time management at this time? Have you achieved what you wanted to achieve in the course of the lockdown? Do you want another lockdown in order to achieve that? But if you say that, you need to watch the video again, because Chris highlighted that and the panelists. And also the most important thing, how will you operate now in this new form of normalcy? Talk to your families and all those things. Remember to like and subscribe to the YouTube channel, SYLBOURNE TV, Facebook, SYLBOURNE TV, and also, check out Coach Browne. If you want Coach Chris Browne with an E, if you want David, you got to go to the hospital. And I don't think you want to go there. You're not supposed to see. As a matter of fact, you're not supposed to see David. Right?
Unless you have varifocals and you want an eye opinion, that's okay. I'm happy to see you, SYLBOURNE. Happy to see you.
There's a lawyer, Steve Atkinson, my good mate. He come on sometime and said, when you come to see me and I'm representing in court, that's you're at the end of your tether, really. Because that's when you're trying to murder and trying to get you off. Not that he's trying to get you off, trying to give you a good defense, if anything like that. So there are certain people. As for Anil, you just go to the States and find him, man. In Virginia. You know? Go to first, of course. All right, guys, good night. Now listen, those who want to go on Instagram, I don't know who's going to join me on Instagram for about 20 minutes, 30 minutes. I will go through it. There are people over there waiting as well, and they're saying we're waiting. So Chris, are you coming?
I won't be on the Instagram, but you know where I'll be. Yeah, anything
David, are you coming on Instagram?
I will try my best.
Yeah. O'Neill, are we going to hang in Instagram for like 30 minutes or so?
Yeah, I try my best.
Okay, try your best. Okay. All right. Okay. Have a good night, guys. I'm going to just play out with Chris.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Cheers. Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye. I've got a question for you. Do you ever feel stuck? Well, I'm going to share with you why we sometimes feel stuck and also how we can get unstuck. Here on Inspiring Change for a Better You. Okay, as I was saying, sometimes you get that feeling where you get up in the morning, you get ready, you go to work, you go home, you're tired, and you go to bed. To get up the next morning, to get ready, to go to work, to get tired, and home, bed. And it just keeps rolling that way. Get up, home, work, bed. Get up, work, home, bed. Get up, work, home, bed. Get up, work, home, bed. And it takes a whole week of that. And then you get to that bit where you just feel, I just can't take this anymore. Well, let me just explain a few things about this feeling stuck. You know, the funny side is it kind of reminds me of that movie, Groundhog Day. But, you know, the serious side of it is not every time that you feel stuck, it's really such a bad thing. I mean, people get stuck in different areas. It might be their work. It might be their relationships. It might be a social life. It might be just your overall life. But one thing that I'm going to tell you is this. Not every time that you feel stuck, it's actually all that bad. You may feel bad at the time, but sometimes it's your inner person inside of you saying, look, it's time for us to grow. Look, it's time for us to start to do things. It's time for us to start to achieving our goals. You see, when you look at it that way, you realize, I've got to get some momentum in my life. I've got to start moving. So here we go.